So picture this. It's the first week of March 2026. You glance at your phone, and the entire financial world looks like it's on fire. Your 401k has taken a nosedive, and the price at the pump is just soaring. And look, this isn't some far-off hypothetical. It's exactly what unfolded when one single geopolitical event ignited a global economic firestorm. So how on earth did a regional conflict threaten to derail the entire world economy in just 1 week? Let's break it down. Okay, so before we get into the whole geopolitical why of all this, let's just feel the immediate financial pain. I mean, these are the numbers that slammed into everyone's wallets and retirement accounts almost overnight. Get this, on a single day, March 6th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average just tanks. It plummets over 1,000 points. Now, a drop like that isn't just a bad day, you know? That's the kind of thing that makes even the most grizzled traders get nervous. It's a massive alarm bell screaming that there's widespread, serious fear in the market. And of course, you have to ask, what does this mean for you at the gas station? Well, analysts immediately started forecasting a potential 20 to 40% spike in gas prices right here in the US, if this thing kept going. And for Europe, which is way more dependent on these energy routes, the outlook was even worse. And this wasn't just about oil, not by a long shot. We're talking about the cost to move, well, anything across the ocean. Global shipping rates literally quadrupled, almost in a flash. That's a shockwave that immediately tangles up supply chains, and it drives up the cost of everything from electronics to the food in your grocery store. All right, so how did we even get here? What was the spark that lit this massive global fire in the first place? To find the answer, we have to rewind the clock just a little bit, right to the start of the month. It all started right here. On March 1st, the news breaks. U.S. and Israeli forces have conducted a coordinated military operation hitting key Iranian nuclear facilities. This was the trigger. The one event that set off this absolutely devastating chain reaction that would ripple from the Middle East to every single market on the globe. So Iran's response, well, it wasn't a strongly worded letter, that's for sure. It was immediate, it was severe, and it was aimed directly at the world's economic jugular. They made a move to shut down the single most important waterway for global energy. And that waterway is the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if you're not familiar, this is an incredibly narrow channel of water. We're talking just 21 miles wide at its skinniest point. It is the only way for ships to get from the Persian Gulf out to the open ocean, which makes it, and this is no exaggeration, the world's oil artery. Giant tankers from places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait, they have no other way out. It is a massive vulnerability for the entire global economy. And this is where you really see the scale of that vulnerability. Just look at this chart. A full 20%. 1/5 of the entire planet's daily oil supply has to squeeze through that one tiny strait. This is not just some regional shipping lane. It's a critical choke point the whole world depends on. And this really gets to the core of the whole crisis. So what do markets do when 1/5 of an absolutely essential resource is just taken off the table with no clue when it's coming back? The answer is pretty simple. They freak out. Okay, so let's watch how this fear snowballed into a full-blown crisis. We're going to walk through that first week, day by day, and you'll see exactly how all that uncertainty sent oil prices into the stratosphere. Man, it all happened so fast. March 1st, news of the strikes breaks. Bam! Oil jumps 7% almost instantly. Then, by the 3rd, Iran confirms it. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The market gets really nervous. 2 days later, on the 5th, the reality sinks in that this isn't going to be over quickly. And that fear is what ignites March 6th. The biggest single-day price jump since 2020. And it all leads here, to the 7th, with the benchmark U.S. oil price settling over $90 a barrel. This chart really puts that whole surge into perspective. I mean, look at the bar on the left. In January, the average price for a barrel of oil was a pretty calm $67. Now, look at the bar on the right. Just over a month later, we're seeing prices peak around $95. That is a truly staggering jump in such a short amount of time. And it's that velocity that just sent shockwaves through the whole system. All right, let's drill down and get a bit more specific on the two main oil benchmarks. You're looking at West Texas Intermediate, or WTI. That's the U.S. standard. It settled at $90.89 for delivery next month. At the same time, Brent crude, the big international benchmark, shot up even higher, peaking at $95. Two different numbers, but they're both screaming the exact same thing: pure, unfiltered supply panic. A price shock this big and this fast doesn't just stay in the oil market. It's like an economic bomb, and the shrapnel hits every single corner of the global economy. So let's trace those ripple effects. Well, higher energy costs, they basically act like a tax on the entire global economy. Growth forecasts, they get slashed. Inflation, which everybody hoped was finally cooling off, is suddenly at risk of firing right back up. That, of course, erodes your purchasing power, so every dollar you have just buys less. For huge energy importers like China and India, it's a direct hit to their economies. And here in the US, any hope that the Federal Reserve might cut interest rates? Yeah, that's pretty much off the table. This table really tells the story of that chaotic Friday. What you're seeing here is a classic flight to safety. See all the red on the left? The Dow, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, all down big. Money is just pouring out of the broader market. So where did it go? Look at the green on the right. It rushed into two main places. One, energy stocks, which were obviously cashing in on higher oil prices, and two, traditional safe havens like gold. This shows investors weren't just reacting to an oil problem. They were bracing for a major blow to the entire global economy. So at this critical moment, the world was basically staring down two very, very different paths. The future of the global economy really hinged on which one of these scenarios was going to play out. And the two potential futures were just stark. In the best case, the de-escalation scenario, diplomacy works, the strait reopens quickly, and prices could maybe pull back towards the $70 range. But then you have the worst case, a prolonged conflict. If that strait stays closed for weeks or even months, the supply shock gets so much worse, and analysts saw prices not just hitting $100, but maybe even surging as high as $150 a barrel. But here is the really crucial takeaway. Even in the best case scenario, the game has fundamentally changed. This quote from the analysts at Bernstein is so telling. Look at the numbers. They raised their average price forecast for the entire year to $80. And why? They're baking in a new geopolitical risk premium. You can think of it like a permanent anxiety tax on oil. The market now knows for a fact that this choke point can be closed, and that fear alone is enough to keep prices higher long after the immediate crisis is over. And all of this leaves us with the final, really pressing question. This event was a stark, brutal reminder of just how fragile our global energy supply chain really is, and how quickly geopolitics can just completely upend our economies. It forces all of us to wonder, in a world this volatile, is the era of stable, predictable energy prices we once took for granted just over?